So, so a thought came to my mind about how I see the Bible now. So, so the Bible basically is just a book about a certain group of people, aka the Jews at that time, uh, and they document very well of how they perceive God and how this God relates to them and their relationship with this God, how this God, made a special covenant with them and excluded any or outside nations, basically, right? So we use an inclusive agreement or covenant with them, and everybody else outside this um, inclusive group was excluded from the covenant, right? And it just goes about how this God, that their perception of this God, how he relates to them, how he killed for them, he kills baby for them, he asked him to rape other nations and all that stuff like that. He murdered for them. He likes blood. He likes animal sacrifice, all that. So this was their perception of this God, and they documented well. They had great oral tradition and written tradition, into where it was passed on, and a beautiful, cohesive story was made that was passed on to other nations and other people that they were included in this covenant. Okay, and then how they're gonna be, and how they will be disobedient, and then they'll be spread, all around the nation, and then their Savior will come in and gather. They will gather this Israel people and their descendants who has been spread among the nation, and gather them together and save them, all right, and bring them back as a whole again, right? So the promise was still to this exclusive people. It wasn't to outsiders, right? That's what Jesus said, that I came only for the lost sheep, sheep of Israel. He didn't say I came only for the lost sheep of Africans or Japanese. He said Israel. And if we could go back, the original covenant was for Israel. Okay. So a proper example for today. Well, people think today that they're still part of that. So basically, I see now that promise was just only for Israel and was not for nobody else today at all. That was like a 2,000-year-old story that was completed, gone. It's an historical event, a historical story that does not apply to anybody today. It was just a group of people documented very well of how they perceive and relate to this God. Just like, you have the Native Americans, they document their experience of their perception of nature. You have the Japanese, they document their perception of, higher powers or divine power. You have the Muslims, you have the Africans, and everybody claims that their experience of this spiritual thing is the only way, or the true way, right? So what is the difference between then the God of the Jews of the Bible then? How are they different from other people? So why should we believe that because they documented well and they have a cohesive story and it was passed down well, that we should practice and believe that today, right? So a perfect example is like, let's say for example right now that let's say that the covenant was made originally to the Africans. Okay, let's say so instead of the Bible of the Jews, this is the story of the Bible of the Africans, how God made covenant with Africans. So let's say for example now, all right, in the beginning, God chose a people in Africa, all right, and made an exclusive agreement with them, covenant with them, that He's going to protect them, look after them, and take care of them, right? And then as long as they listen to Him, obey Him, everything's going to go well. If they don't listen to Him, then then there's going to be trouble, right? So God made originally, so we're just kind of telling a story, just using a different group of people now, okay? So God made a covenant with Africans first, originally, right? And then as time went by, the Africans, they spread around the world, okay? So, but you still have the authentic Africans that still remain in Africa and their descendants. But then you still have some Africans that they went to Germany, You have some Africans that went to, so now they're African Germans. Then you have some Africans that went to Japan. Then you have some African Japanese. Then you have some Africans that went to China. You have some African Chinese. You have some Africans that went to France. Then you have some African French. And then you have some Africans that went to, just name it, a different country, right, outside of Africa, right? So, but even though they went outside of Africa and they what you call assimilate other cultures, and they're practicing other cultures, and let's say they're not true to the original culture, but they still remember their roots, right? But you still have the original Africans that stayed in Africa. They see themselves as the authentic Africans, right? The authentic folks, right? Practicing the authentic religion and the cultures and the ways. So whenever they see the other Africans out in Germany and France and China, they look down on them, right? They say, "Oh, you guys are not real Africans," right? They see them as outsiders. Okay, I'm getting started with this now. I'm trying to compare the story of the Jews, right? Of how God told them that He's going to gather them together, both the Jews and the Gentiles. The Gentiles were basically the ones, the original descendants of who had the promise that was spread around the nation. It wasn't other nation that was the Gentiles. It was still the descendants of the Jews that became Gentiles, spread out to different nations, right? So back into the Africans been spread out to different countries, right? So you have the authentic African that's remaining in Africa, but then you have someone like me, all right? I was born in Africa, but then I came to America, so now I'm an African American, right? True African American, right? I wasn't born here, but I still remember my roots, right? And I go back, let's say once in a while, I still eat the foods, I still practice some aspect of the culture, but I just modify it and I mix it, with American way. Right? Same thing with the Gentiles, the Jew Gentiles back then, right? The folks that were lost. Okay, so so basically, we have the authentic Africans still remain in Africa, but then you have the African Chinese person, the African German person, the African French person, the African Mexican person, Spanish person, right? And so, but once in a while, even though that we went to the other nations, we still remember our roots. And once a year, we go back to Africa to kind of celebrate the culture and the ways, and give thanks to that God that we were raised in. But and then we come back to our country, Germany, France, and all that, right? Hope you guys hope you follow me, all right? Okay, so this promise, to the Africans originally, right? That some was lost, some were still in the fold, but then some were still outside the fold. All right. So the way you can see, basically, the Africans that left Africa and went to different countries, they were the ones outside the fold, and the ones inside the fold, let's say the Pharisees and the Sadducees, right? They was the ones inside the fold, right? They was, boastful and proud and feel like, that the African covenant still does not apply to the Africans in Germany, the Africans in France, the Africans in Spain anymore, because, they left Africa, type of thing, right? Same thing with the Jews, right? But once a year, we come back to Africa to worship, and so every once a year, so the same, we can just say example, like I'm just trying to connect different dots, different stories of the Jews Bible, and try and relate it to a different, people group, and try and kind of summarize it and see how, see what you think about that. So once a year, so for example, so with their Pentecost, right, Jews and Gentiles from all nations, they come back to Israel to worship God, right? And then the day of Pentecost come, and then they were baptized and blah blah blah, all that stuff, right? So same way, you have the Africans who went out of Africa and populate different countries. Once a year, they come back into Africa to worship, right? And remember, God, made this covenant with this African, and then Jesus came in looking for and preaching the gospel, right? Trying to save the Africans, trying to bring them back into the fold, right? So the day of Pentecost happened, and the Africans from every nation were in one place. They got baptized, they got the Holy Spirit, spoke in tongues, stuff like that. And people think, wow, my gosh, Even the Gentiles were speaking in tongues. But remember, originally, the covenant was made originally with the Africans. The covenant was not made to the Germans or to the Frenchmen or to the Spanish. It was made to the Africans. But then when the day of Pentecost come, the so-called Gentiles or the Africans that are in Germany and France, they received that same spirit that was promised to the original people, right? So I see it as the same thing. So basically, let's say for example, if I'm just gonna use, this was something that was going through my head earlier. I was talking in my head, then I just decided to kind of put on tape, right? Maybe if I have some time, I'll kind of put it together. So, but let's say, when Jesus comes back, and I'm hanging out, so I'm over here in America, right? Let's say I'm over here, I'm African Russian, right? I'm African Russian. I'm hanging out with my Russian friend that was born in Russia, the descendants of Russian, right? So basically, when Jesus comes, his ministry is not to my buddy, the Russian. His ministry is to me, to the African Russian or to the African German, because he came specifically for me, because I'm probably a descendant of the original Africans. All right. So it never came for people from other nations. It came from descendants. The original and the descendants of those who the original promise was made to. Okay. So yeah. So the promise was made to the descendants. He said, I came for the lost sheep of Israel, or I came for the lost sheep of Africans. Right? Came for the lost sheep of Africans. So yeah, so basically, so the promises, so whenever it's time for, to Jesus to come and come back in the second coming, right? To come save the Africans and rescue them and bring them back to God and all that stuff like that. He's coming back to gather all the both authentic Africans that still remain in Africa and the Africans that spread around the nation, the Africans that went to Germany, France, China, Asia, and things like that, right? It's going to gather specifically those African descendants. It's not going to gather the French person or the German person. It's only going to gather the African German or the African French person or the African Spanish person. It's not going to just gather anybody, because the promise was not meant to any outside nations. So that's how I'm seeing right now. Even with the Bible, right? That story was about a specific group of people that was made, a promise was made to them and the descendants. And those descendants, they become aka Gentiles, because they were not practicing the original, authentic, the Jewish religion. They modify it, or you can say like I said, for example, the Africans, the original covenant was with the Africans, but now I'm in America now, so I don't practice the old African culture 100%. I do a modified way, right? But I'm still part of God's chosen people, because the covenant was made to the original Africans. You get what I'm saying, right? So basically, I cannot say this promise sometimes in the future is later on going to apply to anybody else, to the German, to the Frenchman. No, it only applies specifically to the Africans and to the African Germans, those who that are dispersed to different nations. All right. So that's why when God comes back or whatever like that, He's going to gather all the Africans, all the descendants, both authentic Africans or Jews and the not so-called authentic Africans, the Gentiles, and bring them all into one fold. And that's one family. Still excluding the other nations, still excluding the French people, the Germans, because the story was specifically about Africans, about God making covenant with Africans. So, and this story is how the Africans saw it, right? So Even though the German Africans might not practice the exact same authentic African religion or African way, but they still tell their children about where they came from, about what they used to practice, about their ancestors and things like that, and encourage them to keep that in mind. And that, hey, you are God chosen people, God chosen Africans. We know we're not in Africa right now. We're German. We're African Germans right now. But once a year, we still go back to Africa and practice our, old ways and stuff like that to remember, right? So that's the exact same story that happened in the Bible. The Bible was never about anybody else. It was never about. So I'm going back to the Jews' Bible now, the Old and New Testament. That Bible was never about Africans. The covenant was never meant to Africans. The covenant was never meant to Germans, China people, Spanish people, name it. That covenant was never meant to nobody else. It was made specifically to Israel, the lost Israel, the authentic one, and the modified ones. So today, the Bible has nothing to do with me. I'm not original. I'm not an Israelite. I'm not a Jew. I'm not a descendant of Israel or Jews. So the Bible does not apply to me. The Bible does not apply to nobody today, at all. All the story, all that, because that story ended 2,000 years ago. It was a king. It rounded up 2,000 years ago. Everything was ended 2,000 years ago at that coming of that gathering of all the Jews and Gentiles, meaning the descendants of the authentic Jews who just spread around the nations. And that story was supposed to stop at a certain time frame. It's not an ongoing story forever and ever. But we will give me the story now to say it applied to us. But I was never in the story. A German person was never in the story. It's impossible today for a German or Frenchman to be a Christian, to be part of the Bible story. No, never. So that's what I was saying. If we use the example of instead of saying the Israelites, let's say the Africans had the original covenant, and the descendants of the Africans had the original covenant. So it's impossible for any other people from other nation who are not Africans or not descendants of Africans to be part of the covenant. It's impossible. If you're gonna be consistent and understand the old picture of the Bible, it's impossible. The Bible does not apply to anybody today. The Bible stopped and ended 2,000 years ago when the Jerusalem was destroyed. So that was kind of the thoughts and ramble that was going through my head. I just kind of put it down. So maybe when I get some time, I'll write it down. Yeah, do like an outline or something like that. But I was just trying to see what is. That's one way it's kind of made it more clear to me, because now today it's hard for people to see, that they're not part of the story of the Bible. They put themselves that they're part of the Bible story, and they've been taught that they're part of the Bible story. So their foundation has been wrong because their foundation is built on a lie. They were given a lie. They were told a story, and they accepted that story, and then they built their entire life on that false, sandy foundation. So that's why when you bring a thought and idea to me, hey, you tell a Christian today that they will never part the Bible, it's hard for them to even comprehend, to even imagine the possibility, and they just go crazy and close-minded. It's impossible for them to see that. But if you follow my example of the Africans, if Israel was given to Africans and the African descendants, basically the Africans that went abroad were the Gentiles, and the Africans that stayed in Africa were the authentic Africans, aka Jews, right? And then the abroad ones are Gentiles that spread around the nation. They still remember their roots, and they come once a year to celebrate, you know. And so the authentic Africans or the Jews, they see them as outsiders, and they see them as Gentiles that don't deserve to be in the covenant anymore because they left Africa, they didn't contribute traditions and this and that. We the Africans, they are still in Africa, the authentic, covenant people, and you can't be a part of us. But then God said, what God didn't care about was the thought. God knew, He knew who His people were. He knew the authentic ones that remained African, and He knew the descendants of the authentic ones, that were spread abroad. His promise was to those people specifically. And His promise was to send Jesus Christ to redeem all those people back to one fold. That's it. His promise was never to outsiders. It was never to Germans. It was never to French people. His promise, for my example, with the Africans, was specific to everything and everyone attached to that African seed. Oh, I know we can replace, because I was using the Africans, in place of the Jews. You could use the Germans. Let's say the covenant was made originally to the Germans, or let's say the covenant was let's say the Bible story. The covenant was made to the Germans originally, or to the Spanish people originally. If the Bible story, let's say it was made, with the Spanish people, how can an African claim that I'm part of that story? That's just lie, unless I've been given a story and been brainwashed in that, hey, this was originally story about the Spanish people that God made a covenant, but you being an African, you included too, because God said that He's gonna bring Gentiles into this promise, but the Gentiles were just Spanish people that went abroad out of their homeland and practiced a modified way of believing and seeing God. But they still remember their roots, and they go back once a year, to celebrate their roots, and then go back to their abroad to their second home. It's the same story, but that's how the Bible basically is about. So it was about the Jews, the authentic ones that remain in Israel, that try to follow the covenant to the T. It was also about the descendants of those authentic Jews that went abroad to different nations, and they practiced a modified version of the old covenant, right? Of the original promise. But God still forgave them, and His eyes were still on all of them, right? And He sent people to gather Him, and then finally He sent His Son Jesus Christ, right? To shed His own blood, right? So this God, He loves blood, right? So to shed His own blood, so He could redeem and reclaim and to restore the relationship that He had with both the authentic Jews and their descendants, right? Because this broken relationship was a relationship about its original people and those who was trying to leave or who was spread abroad, right? He had no intention to restore something that was never there before. He had no intention to restore relations with Germans or relations with Africans or French people, because He never had a relationship with French people. His relationship was with Israel and their descendants, both Jews and Gentiles. That was His promise. That was so basically. You can say, today Bible, that anybody can be part of the Bible story today. Like Africans can, Germans can, Chinese people can, because God never had a relationship originally, and never had a relationship with Africans. He had a relationship with Israel, with Jews. So hopefully, you can get what I'm trying to say here. I didn't really think it thoroughly through, but the thought just kind of floated in my mind, and I was just kind of flowing with it, and it's like, oh, let me record this and see if I could repeat what I say. I didn't do as good of a job as I did in my head, in my mind, when I was talking to myself earlier, and then until I realized that let me record it. I'm sure this I could have done better. The first time was great when I was talking to myself out loud, and then trying to remember what went through my head the first time. It was a little bit kind of challenging, but hopefully the gist of what I'm trying to say clicks, right? That the promise, that the story of these Jews, the Jews wrote in the Bible, or that was collected, it was a story of their perception of their God, of how He relates to them, and how He promised to love them, separate them from all the people, and then as act up and they spread around the world, that He's going to eventually one day bring them all back together. And He said He did all that, about 2,000 years ago, and that's when the story ended. And he gathered all of them together, and they all went to be with their God. That was their story. That was their perception of the story of how He relates to God. That story of the Jews God of the Bible doesn't have to be. It's not our story today. That's just the way they saw God. That's the way they saw God. So because you have people, they say they have this genuine experience of experiencing God, right? So the Muslims do, the Native Americans have this experience of experiencing the God, or having a genuine, some kind of conversion, having a tingling feeling, or seeing miracles, or speaking in tongues, right? Every other people group experience the same thing who don't believe in the Bible. So why should we take this Bible as the authority, as the one true source, as that the God of this Bible is the real and true God? How do we know? And when I was in Christianity, this God of the Bible never visited me once, or talked to me, or made Himself clear and understood, or visit me. I was a hardcore Christian for like 15 years plus, and I was devoted. I was by faith trying to practice the faith by the T. I failed miserably, and I was depressed. I was sad because I couldn't meet those standards. I was trying so hard. I isolated myself. I didn't have lots of friends. I practiced celibacy. I fasted, and this and that. But I never had any type of visitation, or any special encounter, or any clarity that this God of the Bible that I'm worshiping was the true God. Never, not once. Some people claim that they explain the God of the Bible as a true God. Some people who, if you were to look at us, you say, man, Claudius is more hardcore than that person. But those people, they have these encounters, these experiences. I never had those experiences, and I was trying to follow the Bible to the T. I didn't do, back then I didn't do drugs, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. Rarely. It took me a while to even, have sex. And when I did, I felt guilty. I was trying to practice celibacy. I was trying to be hardcore. But I never had experience where I said, man, God spoke to me. Jesus spoke to me. The Holy Spirit spoke to me. I never had once. I couldn't even, honestly, truthfully, I could not get myself to come to that place to say where I say God spoke this to me, or God said this to me. I couldn't say all my 15 years of Christianity, I was never comfortable saying that, because I never knew. I was just guessing. I was just trying to live my life blindly by faith. And I took a story that was given to me to practice, and I built my theology on that, and to where I started seeing these truths through those beliefs. And it took me a while to break out of it, little by little, and my eyes to be opened up, and my mindset to open up, because I kept, listening to everybody, listening to different type of Christian, trying to see what everybody was saying. And finally, that same Bible got me out of and got me transition out of Christianity to where now I have more peace, I have more clarity and understanding now than ever before. So yes, some people have genuine experiences, genuine conversion experiences. So the Hindus, the Muslims, the Wiccans, the witches, the Voodians, the pagans, they all have genuine experiences of being lost and then being saved and being rescued and feel secure and feel one with God. Everybody in every religion feels like that. So even people who say, "Oh, God spoke to me, I heard God." People, some Christians, they're very confident saying that. Well, then you have sidekicks who feel the same way. You have people who weren't born Christians who are naturally or inclined to spiritual intuitiveness. They're sensitive spiritually. They hear stuff. They even might do miracles or heal people, and they weren't Christians. But then, so how should we perceive those people then? Well, the Christian would perceive them as being of the devil because they didn't believe in their Bible. But how do you know that your God, the Bible, is a true God? How are you supposed to know who the true God is? Did God come visit you and told you that He was a true God? Or did man tell you that you were a sinner, that you needed God? And if you don't believe in God, you're gonna go to hell unless you receive Jesus Christ. And then you felt that need that you've been lost, and then you turn around, accept the cross, and then you had a genuine feelings that you were saved and that you're a child of God, and now you're different, you're better than everybody else. Not everybody feel that way, but I'm just being extra. Alright. So anyway, so that's my story here. And I've transitioned out of Christianity since November of 2018. I feel like I'm in a better place, spiritually, physically, emotionally, every aspect. And I think it's amazing that now, coming out of Christianity now, I can truly examine the Bible. I can examine myself. I can ask more questions, and I'm free to ask questions. And before, I wasn't free to ask questions. I was kind of, nervous. You get taught in Christian that you can't ask questions. They think if you question certain things that you don't get in trouble, that you don't have faith. But at the same time, that God, they claim gave us our brain and reason, right? But we weren't supposed to use it. We just accept blind faith. Right? So you're looking at a person who was a hardcore Christian. I read the Old Testament and the New Testament. I think I read the New Testament in different versions more than 8 times. I listened to the Old Testament. The Old Testament. I listened to it in different versions more than 8 times. I've read it and I've listened to it more than maybe 100 times. Listened to it, driving, almost 15 years. The New Testament, I've read the New Testament more than 50 times. And then some of the books I've read more than 100 times. I've listened to it lots of times. I spent my money. I read all kind of books, all kind of interpretations and all that. Even my jokes was around the Bible, making clean jokes and all that. Did everything. All of my life was around the Bible. I created my lifestyle, my jokes, my routine around the Bible. Everything had to fit in the Bible. But to be honest, other than practicing the Bible and you could say maybe it helped me to be more, I guess, of a nice person. You could say of a good person from the Bible perspective. Maybe holier or whatever than non-believers, right? And maybe people might see me, I don't know, I'm more responsible or maybe more honest and a man of my words type of thing. But those characteristics, non-Christians, non-Bible believers, they exhibit the same traits, right? Everybody from all walks of life exhibit the good characteristic that is taught in the Bible, right? Everybody exhibit that. Everybody can exhibit that, whether you're Christian or not. I guess the virtues of Christianity, right? The reason why everybody can exhibit those two, because we are one. There's no separation between us. Religion puts separation between us, but we are one. People think that their God is better than the other God. They don't think that God is better than the God. That's just a perception of how they perceive their God. But when you look at Christian today, it's not the authentic Christian back 2,000 years ago. Right now it's so modified. There's not much action going on. There's no more craziness going on. Nobody's being struck dead anymore and stuff like that. It's been watered down. And how is it so watered down and so far from the authentic Christianity in 2,000 years ago? Why is it okay? How come nobody has been struck down? How come America has not been destroyed? Because the Bible doesn't apply to us today. It applied to them 2,000 years ago, and their world ended 2,000 years ago, and that was it. It has nothing to do with nobody today. So, and also, the same scripture is how I transitioned out of Christianity, the same scripture, because I learned to take myself out of the story and see from a different perspective. I saw the Bible the way it was. I took myself out of it, and I saw clearly that it wasn't by me, and I couldn't continue the lies anymore. I couldn't continue trying to live that life because it wasn't by me. I wasn't part of the people. I wasn't the descendant of that people. And those people ended 2,000 years ago. Now you might try to say, what about Jews today? There's no authentic Bible descendants or people group today. It's not. All that ended a long time ago. It was they just faking the funk, trying to pretend, living a lie. I guarantee you. You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible said that the end of the age was supposed to happen in the first century. The end of the age, the end of all things, was supposed to happen in the lifetime of those Bible characters. Those Bible characters, they're gone. It said that everything was going to end while some of those people in the Bible were still standing and alive. That don't happen today. None of those guys are alive today. But people today are lying to themselves. It's hard for them to drop and change their story. It's too much. They can't do it. They feel stuck. What am I gonna do? The preacher, they want the big church. He can accept what I'm saying. His livelihood. It's all about that. His livelihood surrounds this lie. Oh my goodness, man. Amazing. I'm trying to incredible. So that's my little rant there. And I was choosing the Africans, in place of the Jews to kind of show you, the story that the exclusive nature and covenantal nature of the Bible and the people. It gives the people of how they saw God and perceived themselves. It's like you have some Native Americans, you have some Africans, you have some Chinese people, you have some French people who their perception or practice of spirituality of God, some of them they document it well, they write it down, but at the end of the day, just how they perceive God. That's how they perceive God. But I think that even though I think whatever this God is, the true God or whatever, right? I don't think it cares about what we believe about Him, because I think I might be wrong, right? But I think this Creator or whatever you want to believe, right? I think he doesn't. I think he accepts everyone. I think he allows people to express themselves, to him in whatever way that they're able to. I don't think he cares about which way or which avenue, which spiritual path or religious path that you're worshiping him or acknowledging him. I know that some people or some sector, they're trying to believe that their group is the right way. Well, I think this creator, this God, I don't think he had intentions to I don't think this creator had any intentions to come up with a religion that's going to defy his creation and cause them to have enmity or be at odds with each other, killing each other for his name's sake. I don't think he cared about all that. I think it's man that trying to divide themselves from their perception of God and trying to force it on everybody's throat and say that their God told them to kill you, destroy you, and God to invade your country, God to evangelize you and to turn you into the good way. I think that's all man-made. So I think this creator doesn't care about that. I think man made that up. I think this creator loved his creation equally, without no prejudice or biases. So that's my conclusion now. And so I know where I stand with the scriptures. I've studied. I know it for me. Most Christians don't read the Bible or study. I study like my life depending on it. When I was in Christianity, I read the Bible because my life, because I was ready to die for what I believed in. How many Christians today are willing to die for what they believe in? How many Christians fully understand the scriptures? Yeah. So definitely, I'm not telling I'm changing my story has changed. I'm not gonna raise my children. I'm not gonna tell my children that they're sinners and that they're gonna go to hell if they don't accept Jesus in their life. I'm gonna teach them that that they're loved and cared for and taken care of by their Creator. That there's no separation between them and the Creator. That if they want to believe in the Creator, then this Creator loves them. Then they can access Him and talk to Him anytime. They don't need no media person. That's what I'm going to teach them. That they're loved, that they're fully equipped, that they're fully provided for by us, the parents, and the Creator. That they can, whenever they're going their own, that they can trust the Creator, God, to take care of them if they want to include that in their practice. If not, I don't think this God cares. So, alright, then that's my little rambling here. I was supposed to kind of be studying and do some marketing stuff, but it came so strong on me. I was like, let me just record it now. See, if now some people, if I see a Christian, or whatever, they'll be like, oh, I can easily say, God told me, God gave me this inspiration and made me see this way. I can easily say that. It could be, or it could be part of my other nature, right? If you believe in the all humans as being the spirit, soul, and body, it could be this thoughts could, because I wasn't thinking about it, it just came out of nowhere. So this thought could have been placed in my mind or introduced in my mind or whispered in my ear, and I just feel like it was mine, but I heard it from something extra, or it might have come from I guess some people say my higher self. Who knows? I don't know. It might come from deep within. It might come from God or a higher being or whatever like that, or came from within myself. I could easily label that, oh, I heard God. God told me this to tell you this. God told me to give this story. No. Yeah, I think I should start the rambling now. If you have any questions or any thoughts, let me know. For your Christians, come at me if you want to challenge me. Come at me with the Bible. Don't come at me. Don't get all emotionalized on me or freaking out, call me names. Just get your Bible and show me some scriptures, then we can dialogue through that aspect. Don't come with fear and craziness and all that nonsense. Just talk with reason with me, okay? All right. I don't believe I don't fear all that Bible craziness and fear mongering type of stuff and more tactics. That don't work for me no more. It never really did, but definitely work for me now. So you save all that nonsense for a gullible Christian, for a non-Christian who does not study the word at all. So if you're gonna come at me, let's dialogue respectively and let's share. Alright, let's be open-minded. I came from where you're at right now. If you see a question, I came from where you're at. I asked the same questions. I thought the same way. But I have answers. I have direct and specific biblical answers for your questions. But are you open-minded enough to hear? Alright? I think if all Christians can take a moment to just take themselves out of the Bible, they can see clearer and understand more and can receive more freedom. But as long as you put yourself in the Bible, it's going to be hard for you to see that you will never include in the Bible, or to see potentially another interpretation or another perspective. That's the issue with Christianity today and Christian people. They're so close-minded, and they're built their truths on the wrong, faulty foundation that it's hard for them to take a moment to just step out and see from a different perspective. It's hard, but it can be done. It can be done. You just have to be aware and conscious, and not be afraid that you're gonna go to hell for asking questions or for listening to a different perspective. You ain't gonna go to hell. Hell was a place of Jerusalem, a burning place. Hell was not a spiritual place that people burn forever. That's another topic. When you're ready, let me know. I created a list on YouTube about the doctrines of hell, where it came from, and I think we reconcile the truth about that from a biblical perspective. That hell is not a spiritual burning place that people burn forever. It's actually a place in Jerusalem that Jesus referenced to. Wasn't a place that people burn forever. Nope. And there's some scriptures too there's some scripture too that seems is what was that word? Doesn't match or whatever. But there's some scriptures that if you open will let you see that the old teaching about hell being a spiritual place that will burn forever. There's some scriptures that challenges that, honestly. Okay, I'm done. It's 12:19 a.m. now. Chill. God bless you. The Creator blesses you. Whatever.